Lucien, thank you for coming to 160 Studios in Delray.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you there. And you and I were at TCT recently.
That's right.
And you've been on quite the global tour as of late.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robocath, last time you and I chatted about that, I think we were in Israel at ICI. And you continue to make tremendous headway in the organization. And certainly the category is getting a lot of attention these days on that vascular robotic side of things. So with our audience, share a little bit about Robocath, the history, and some of the features.
So Robocath has 15 years, has been created 15 years ago by a neuroradiologist. And his vision clearly was to, since he is a neuroradiologist, was to say, well, he saw patients dying because they could not be treated for stroke. So he said, well, we need to do something here. And this is where came the overall idea of Robocath, a robot, how to be able to treat patients remotely when they are far away from one key centers to be treated. So that's the overall story of Robocath. This is how it started. So 15 years ago. So basically, it took us 15 years to be where we are today. With a first-gen robot, with a second-gen robot to address, vascular more broadly, not only cardio, but also neuro and peripheral.
And that's a good thing, because in the last 5 years, we've watched robotics mature, or let's say evolve. Mature is inferring that we should be at a state of homeostasis, but we're watching the category broaden. We're watching it become less exclusive and more inclusive of number of cases. And before we move on, what the heck is going on in France? That's another surgical robotic, interventional robotic company coming out of France. I mean,
that's
right between quantum and moon and accusurgical and what's in the water over there?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer, but it's a reality. A lot of startups are working around robotics, different specialties, surgery, different kind of surgery, and we are, well, lucky us, we are the only one working in vascular space.
One of the things with Robocath, though, I think is really unique for the vascular space is you've got a technology there that still keeps that same critical tactile sort of feeling in the interventionalist hands, right? Is it a bionic technology?
Yes, indeed it is. You're spot on. It is a so-called bionic technology. So what does it mean, concretely speaking, is that we are mimicking the physician hands movement with our robot. And this is our core tech. It's very specific, and we strongly believe in it. And why am I saying this? It's because we had it in our first gen, and we're going to keep it in our second generation. Is our again core tech, and it's actually the fact that we are mimicking the physician hands. It's also good for the adoptions and the learning curve of the physician, because after 1, 2, 3 cases max, they know how to handle it, because they can imagine how the robot will react when they're going to say, okay, we're going to pull the wires, the balloon, or torque it or whatever. So it's super intuitive. That's key indeed.
And that platform, so you're not tied to a neuro suite or a cath suite, right, or peripheral vascular. This has got a multi-threat to it in any of those interventional spaces.
Yeah, well, so I'm not sure I got your question, but actually our platform will be able to address, well, the indication in cardio, neuro, and peripheral. Well, because it's vascular, the wire, well, the tools or devices that are used might have some different diameters, length, but the robot could adapt, could handle that anyway. And there are also other challenges that we can have with a vascular robot. It's as you may know, in cardio, it's rapid exchange devices, whereas in neuro and in some cases also in peripheral, they are over the wire. Why is it so difficult? It's because the devices cannot be used and moved the same way. So basically, if we speak about rapid exchange, you can imagine to have 3 or 4 tracks and in parallel, and then you can move the different devices. When it comes to over the wire one device has to be inside the other one, and so on and so forth, 2, 3, 4 times in the most complex cases. So saying it's easy, make it happen and transform this requirement into a technology, into a robot, then it's a different challenge.
What's interesting too is when you think about surgical robotics, you know, you can talk about ortho and you can talk about general surgery. And generally speaking, those OR suites tend to revolve all around the robot and the surgeon or clinician. When I think about a cath lab as an example, there probably isn't a more connected environment with imaging, with visualization, with data, yet still we're missing the one digital connection.
That's right.
We still have an analog operator where it's hard to capture how we tie everything in together. So is that one of the portals that Robocath brings?
It is. So clearly the robot will be the, let's say, missing brick into this environment, into this cath lab environment, especially if we think about the next step of the cath lab setting. If we think about the digitalization, well, it's going to have to be built together with robotic. And today, well, as you said, there is, well, the operation itself is made by a human, but tomorrow the robot can handle it. And if we think beyond that, it's all the learning that we will have, you know, as the first step. We can think about, obviously, well, remote procedures, obviously, but also automated or semi-automated interventions for specific cases. So it will completely change the way that we are treating patients today, but without compromising the need of having the physician behind the joysticks, right? So it is robotic does not pretend to replace a physician, but to multiply, you know, the potential of a better treatment, of a better patient access, and all this working in better conditions, and also to again to be able to have automated movements or procedures, but also advices. So tomorrow the systems themselves could say, well, in these cases we know that in X percentage of cases you should better use this or that or handle these procedures that way. I think it will also help to upgrade somehow or to increase the level of knowledge, or maybe to have a faster you know, a learning curve for maybe younger physicians or whatever. Well, I don't know yet, but we will discover all this. But it's clearly the way it will go.
Yeah, and I often hear, especially in the cath lab, the relationship between the interventionalist and the imaging specialist, right? So that marriage is critically important, and sometimes, most of the time, the good ones are speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And they're used to working with each other, in harmony with each other. So to your point, once I can start to get this data-rich environment of imaging, and then advisement, and then the acceleration of the interventionalist, and bring her or him up to speed quicker, everybody wins on that, even before I go to the hub and spoke handling of stroke or remote monitoring.
Yeah, it's going to have to be the starting point.
Yeah. So tell me, where are we with Robocath right now?
The Robocath, we are commercializing our first gen product in Europe, so CE marked, well, Europe and Middle East, and we are about also to get our certification to commercialize the technology in China, which is the biggest you know, country in terms of number of PCIs. And but we are in parallel. We are also developing our next gen platform, and which is not a dream. It's existing. We have already a prototype, which is existing. We are also scheduling our first in human early next year, with all the process of CE marking, FDA, and so on and so forth. But the particularity of this platform, it will be a platform for not only for cardio, but also for neuro as well as peripheral. It's very unique. Again, as I said earlier, we're going to keep the same core tech because it's where we strongly believe that we have a strong asset. But the big difference with this platform is it will it will clearly allow to have a mass adoption of vascular robotic. And why? Simply because we're going to be able to address most of the cases, most of the procedures. That's a huge difference for what we have today, clearly with limited indications. But on the other hand, it allows us to start, working with KOLs, early adopters, and to understand better where should we improve, what should we develop, what are the expectations from a vascular robotic standpoint. And actually, we pick up all their feedback, we put them all together, and this brought us to our second-gen platform that is, well, under prototype right now, but it's existing, it's real.
Well, it'll be an exciting time. I know the market is primed for certainly a digital interventional solution in any of those three categories. We'll be watching it very closely. I appreciate your time, certainly. Thanks for coming into 160 Studios.
Thank you very much, Joe. A pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.